glasses for the glare. So welcome everybody to this historic event, you could say, what we're calling the Eco Coaching Panel. So we have a number of panelists, many of whom you know, and for this 90 minutes, it'll be hopefully a lively discussion, probably an emergent conversation. We do have an agenda. I'm going to get to that in a moment. And I guess I'll begin by just briefly introducing myself. I don't know if everyone knows who I am. So my name is Richard Hyams. I am the senior facilitator with Erickson, and I've been with Erickson for, gosh, now as a facilitator and a coach for about 18 years. And for the past 5.5 years, I'm faculty lead for Erickson Coaching International, and I volunteered to be the interviewer of this experience because I love to ask questions. So there is an agenda. There we go. Yeah, I managed to put this. Oh, look at that. It says question 1 in the corner. That's because I used a module 1 slide for this. In any case, let me. For this, I need my glasses. Tanya, I'm curious. I keep hearing this sound. That sounds like the hand up sound. You know what that is? That meaning anything that I should pay attention to? You know that.
I just see Micah. Micah has put her hand up, but no. Usually the sound doesn't.
Yeah, okay, so I'll do my best.
We're good. Go ahead, Richard.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, so what do I want to do? I want to get an arrow. So here's our agenda. We're starting at 10 as we did. Right now we're in the welcome, and I'm welcoming you all. Marilyn's going to welcome you in a moment. After that, we will do a few minutes. I will turn the ball, I guess, or not the ball, the session over to Paul Gossen, who will give a quick overview of what we're doing, and then we'll give every other panelist an opportunity to introduce themselves. And then the bulk of this experience, of this event, of this panel discussion will be a general question rotation. We've prepared some questions for the panelists, and they will be answering these questions in light of the Eco Coaching Framework. And then near the end, this is a 90-minute call, so near the end, we will take care of questions. We will invite questions from you and invite you to ask those questions through the chat. We may ask you to elaborate on your question if the question needs more clarification. And then at the very end, Paul will give an overview or outline the larger Eco Health project that follows from the Eco Coaching project that follows from the webinars that each of the panelists here today are going to be conducting over the next little while. And then we'll have a final 2-minute debrief, and we will be complete. And the aim is to end right on time at 11:30. So I am going to give Marilyn a moment to welcome you all, and then Paul Gossen will introduce himself as well as giving an overview. Okay, Marilyn, are you available to give a welcome? I will turn off my video.
Sure am. I'm glad to be here this morning with everybody, and I'm really happy to be a person involved in ecology coaching. We're all in the incubator right now because of COVID-19. We're coping with life in lockdown. And this is a way to think long-term about what ecology is, what it truly means to discover your inner frontline thinking and become stable and even peaceful in your ability to live no matter what VUCA throws at us, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous realities. So everyone, I'm the president of Erickson Coaching International. I'm a person who loves solution-focused coaching, and I'm very happy to be with you here today.
And next, I'm going to invite Paul to give an overview. And once again, I'll turn off my video and let you take over.
Hey, thank you, Richard. So just a little bit of context for our project. This really began with the World Game many years ago, and many of you have attended World Game sessions around the world. There's been so many of them now. And about 6 months ago, we were asking this question, which is, how can we take the World Game amongst coaches and scale it up so that it has more impact in the world? And this, of course, was before the world of COVID-19 and the disruption that's all happened in our lives. And as we were planning this, COVID emerged, and we realized that the questions we were asking were even more relevant and even more urgent now in the world. So this is really the core element of our project, which is how can we as coaches work together as a community to have more impact out in the world. So there's a whole bunch of different parts of this project. I want to point out that there are actually two main parts. So right now we are in the Eco Coaching series, which is a series of 6 webinars, which will happen over the next 6 weeks or so, or a little less than that actually. And at the end of that program, we're going to have a call to action and invite everyone to step up to the larger eco-coaching project, which is a 6-month program where we're going to ask everyone to volunteer a minimum of 40 hours to work on some real projects out in the world that will have an impact and make a difference. But before we get to that, we really wanted to start today by setting the foundation. What does eco-coaching mean? What are we committed to as a group, and how can we as a community work together to share these values out in the world? And how do we manage things like balance, harmony? How do we manage unintended consequences? And what is the bigger game we are playing? And then finally, how do we take our coaching skills and capabilities out into the world and maximize our impact? So that's a general introduction to the theme for today. Some of the core themes, of course, the different panelists will present very different views on this. Some of them are grounded in ecology. Some are more from a long-term scientific point of view. I'm focused more on agility. How can we have more impact and speed? So we'll be diving into a bunch of different topics today. And as a listener, I really encourage you to ask this question of yourself, which is, why is this important to me? Why do I care about this subject? And why would this be worth my very precious time and energy in my life? So I'm asking you to ask that question of yourself as we go through this process today. And, the one thing I want to say just before we pass it on is just how important it is right now in the time of COVID. And, some people might say that thinking about ecology and making a difference in the world is a distraction right now because there's so much change and disruption happening. So we really want to kind of come back to that point, and especially from the long-term shift that is happening in the world, start to challenge that idea. And we'll do that as we go through the course of the day today. Quick introduction for myself. My name is Paul Gossen. I should start with that. I've been an Erickson trainer for 19 years. I am a coach. I've been a coach for 20 years. I'm extremely passionate and committed to having an impact out in the world, so thank you for this time.
Thank you, Paul. So you have introduced yourself, and I'm going to ask the other panelists to introduce themselves as well. And so let's go to Peter Stefanyi. Peter Stefanyi, if you can bring yourself on off mute, and then if you have video on, just a brief introduction so everyone knows who you are.
Hello, everyone. My name is Peter Stefanyi, and I am a trainer of 2 programs, Quadrant Quantum Thinking and Coaching Powerful Negotiations. I do feel and think that our influence as individuals and as collectives can be much bigger than we think or feel. And my belief and feeling stems from the fact that I used to be a physicist, and I did physics a big part of my life. And actually physics, especially quantum physics, kind of pushes or makes me think those things. And I'm in search of finding what's common between the workings of the mind and workings of physics. And there is a lot. So that's it.
Sure. Next, I'm going to invite Rosa. I hope I pronounced your last name correctly. Tkacova, you can correct me. You have every permission to. And if you have video on, that'd be great too. All right, Rosa, you're next.
Thank you, Richard. So I'm Rosa Tkacova, originally from Slovakia, living in Vancouver now. And by background, I'm a medical doctor who has been involved intensely during the H1N1 outbreak 10 years ago, and leading a team of respiratory physicians dealing with that outbreak. So why is it important for me to be here with you? It's an honor and privilege to be with you here and seeing the increase of awareness of a simple fact that as we care about our own individual health and well-being, we care also about the well-being and health of our society, community, of the humankind, and of planet Earth. So to me, the key leading idea that emerges is how deep is the interconnectedness between the individual health and the health of the humankind as such, and the environment and the earth. And within Erickson Coaching International, I'm a facilitator of the Erickson Coaching for Health course, which is my baby, our baby. Thank you.
Actually, I learned some things about you I didn't know. It was a lovely introduction. And lastly, but not exclusively, we now have, I'm going to invite Christopher Cooke next. I believe you're in the UK right now, Christopher Cooke, to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Richard. My name is Christopher Cooke, and I'm delighted to be on this call. I'm based in the UK, and my role as an Erickson partner is to really provide insights and solutions through the application of integral psychology. And many of you know the work of spiral dynamics, and I work in the spiral dynamics lineage, and the program specifically that I work with Erickson is on what is called full spectrum emergence. Now, what's important to me about being on this program and on this call is that I'm really only interested in stuff that works. So I'm from an engineering background. I've had an extensive career in the water industry, but also as a troubleshooter since 1997, applying this understanding of what today I call full spectrum emergence. So our scope of our operation here in the UK is from the soil to the stomach to the soul, and that I believe is the scope of the inquiry that we'll bring to you through this eco-coaching program. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Okay, so we're going to be shifting now into the actual panel and questioning discussion portion of this event today. And my invitation is to do what Tanya said to do, which is to configure the Webex view if you haven't already, so that you can see all the panelists at once. So we're going to have our webcams on for the next 60 minutes. And I believe I'm on a Mac, so if you're like me on a Mac, up in the, I think it's the right-hand corner, there's an icon that looks like a 3 people. You can click on that, and that's panel view. How is it done on PC? Is it different, Tanya?
Yeah, there's 2 arrows on the top right at the webcam view all participants full screen view. So on a PC, it's the 2 arrows. On the Mac, it's 3 people, you just said, right, Richard?
Yes, it is, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to start with you, Marilyn, and with an overview question, just to set the frame for eco-coaching itself. So, Marilyn, my question for you is, how would you define eco-coaching, and why is it important even more right now with today's conditions? Okay. You have to unmute yourself.
Hi, everybody.
Okay.
Well, this is a question I've been thinking about a lot. I could talk for an hour about it. So to get very concise, we're looking at two words put together, ecology. And many of you have, as coaches, been working with personal ecology since the beginning of your coaching careers. Is what this person is doing ecological for them? And the second word, of course, is coaching. How do we assist someone who may be stuck in a very short-term frame to genuinely expand and grow their frame, look long-term, both at their life, the life of their family and people around them, and that's a big one because our children live much longer than we do, and they're moving into a totally different world, one that we don't get to live in. And finally, the leaders around us. Coaches, we are coaching leaders, aren't we? Everyone around us is reaching out for their potential as a leader. How can I grow further, expand my potential, and develop leadership both for myself and others? Now, leadership also includes the entrepreneurs around us. So we want to be coaching people who have genuinely got a big picture as well. Those are the people who are having great impact. So ecology coaching has many steps and parts. One part is basic coaching, assisting people to first look way out into the long term, see what they want to create. What would be their best vision? What would be the most valuable solutions that they can see from their point of view? And then linking that to what their plan might be, that link them towards that. What can they personally offer? What are the opportunities that they can provide? And the third piece, always there in solution-focused coaching, is action steps. Take your own action steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you, Marilyn. So I'm going to turn the conversation over to you, Christopher, because I think you could be able to expand on what Marilyn said with this question, similar question. What does the eco-coaching mean to you specifically?
Thank you, Richard. Well, when Marilyn uses the word frame, I'm in there behind you. So basically what I believe eco-coaching brings to the current situation is that this stimulates an holistically informed practice. And that shifts the frame of thinking to a greater ability to handle complexity. Now, why do I say that? Because we know that in integral psychology, the research at Graves recognise that as life conditions become more complex, and certainly as the viability of Earth is sensed by many as fragile, and that's been emerging seriously now for the last 100 years, and how we think can upstretch towards a more holistic awareness. And I do believe fervently that the eco-coaching catches both the coach and the coachee in that dynamic upstretch where we'll grow to increase our ability to handle the complex, but with a creativity the like of which we've never seen before. So that's my contribution so far. You're on mute, Richard.
So I would like to turn the conversation now over to you, Paul, because I think the same question would be interesting to hear your take on it. So what does coaching eco-agility mean to you? Because agility is a big topic for you, I believe.
Oh, okay, thank you, Richard.
Awesome.
So, you know, agility means the ability to be flexible in your movements, to be agile. And, you know, you can take out the whole corporate thing or agile or any of those things and just think in terms of the raw quality of flexibility, which of course is a core value of coaching and NLP. So for me, I like to be a little practical in here and say, you know, we're looking for solutions. And the solution mindset can be very technical. You know, there's a lot of science and engineering and, frankly, economic complexity out there that seems to present a picture that climate change and the ecological collapse of the Earth is inevitable. So, you know, I need to give some room to the negative or skeptic view, which is a little bit different than a lot of people think of a climate skeptic as someone who doesn't believe that there's a problem. But this is a slightly different version where we're saying that we're actually in a war against apathy. And you could say that, you know, do we sacrifice the future of our species and the future of the planet in order to achieve short-term comfort now? So if there's an enemy in this story, the enemy would be comfort, and we're all in a battle against comfort. So the solution to all this, I would propose, is speed. If we can get some results, get some high-impact results very quickly, then that demonstrates momentum, it demonstrates traction, and it pushes back on this wall of apathy and inaction that everyone's faced with. So I propose that the ideal solution to all this is the team coach, which is someone who adopts a kind of agile coaching style and works with technical teams around the world, uses their solution-focused capabilities to assist that team to deal with whatever challenge or barrier is stopping the forward movement of getting their project to the next level, and that we are very active in working with those teams to assist them to move forward. So in my vision of the world, this is how coaching and ecology combine together with this kind of agile or lean startup kind of framework, and that we can all step into that skills, develop those skills, and very actively move those projects forward. So that's my general answer. Thank you, Richard.
Yeah, I'm purposely asking chunked up general questions, and we're going to get more and more into the details as we move on in this session. Thank you, Paul. Peter, another very broad question to get this discussion moving. Peter Stefanyi, what does ecology mean to you? What is ecology to you, for you?
Thank you for the question. In order to be able to discuss eco-coaching, in my view, we need to zero in and find common meaning of what ecology is. When I go for the dictionary says that ecology is the science which studies the interrelationship of species with its environment. That sounds pretty good. So there is a species on one side, not an individual, but a whole class species, and the surrounding environment. But that's a short-term view. In my opinion, we need to broaden that into time and bring in the word sustainability, which means that the species, so to speak, can use certain resource on a long-term basis without exhausting or destroying it. Again, dictionary definition. So we have the interrelationship of the whole class of beings, species with the environment, and then that goes on in time, very long time. So that is what ecology would be for me, a very broad category of humanity existing on this planet in what physicists would call a dynamic equilibrium. That means without really destroying it. And that is much broader category than say, just global warming or plastics in the ocean. it is a much broader category, including the using of natural resources, forests, and actually bringing in response from the environment, like strange viruses coming at us. So that's my take on it.
Thank you, Peter. I'm going to give Rosa a chance to speak now. You can't go on a website, you can't go on a blog site or anywhere without discussions being about COVID-19, and it's on everybody's mind. And so I'm going to invite Rosa specifically, a little bit more specifically, to talk about how does the experience from a COVID pandemic relate to full spectrum ecology? How do they relate to each other, Rosa?
Well, they do. They relate on the superficial level, which we all see and appreciate and know, which is obvious that outbreaks like this are linked to global warming, climate change, to our human proximity to wildlife, to our entering wildlife, which makes it just so much easier for those viruses, microbes, parasites that are, strictly speaking, primarily only linked to animals. So our proximity makes it easier for them to escape and transmit to human beings. And this is what we are observing over the last about couple of decades being really accelerated all over the world. So outbreaks like this come, they will pass, and there might be new outbreaks coming, which we have the power to shift our behavior, our interaction with the environment in such ways that we prevent that from happening, that we sustain the health of the environment on a broad range, such that such risk is being really minimized. So this is on one level, but there is something why I perceive it is really useful and meaningful for us to talk about ecology and coaching, specifically during the outbreaks, specifically during these times that are so challenging for many of us, is the fact that we are being in a shift of awareness. Whether we are aware of that shift or not, we are being a part of it. We observe it, we live it, we notice it, and we can learn from it. We can observe what's happening in the nature right now. We can hear birds singing in major cities, which was unheard of before. It wasn't heard before. Oceans became quieter. We have the opportunity to really experience what our calming down and shifting our priorities, shifting our, let's say, what we put attention on, how we prioritize our doings, our actions, how that has a major immediate impact on the environment. So we have the possibility brought to us by something that we didn't want to live through, which is the COVID outbreak. However, there is a possibility here to learn from that. And for me, as a respiratory doctor, what is particularly something important is that it is expected, it has been calculated by epidemiologists and scientists that cleaning the environment and air pollution through this year will save thousands of lives due to chronic disorders. So to me, I want to make it brief. So to me, the key question that we face now is, now as we see the entire humankind all around the world to be willing in unison to protect our lives and lives of those around us, and our health and health all of people around us due to an acute threat. How we may become willing to go beyond that, to expand beyond and be willing to protect health and life beyond this outbreak. And here is the time for us to bring our coaching skills, mindsets, and really to spread this to the world.
Thank you, Rosa. Thank you. So each panelist got an opportunity to give an overview of their perspective of eco-coaching as it relates to various interests for them. So I'm going to, we're going to start chunking down with the questions from the what to the how. And I want to acknowledge there's a question in the chat that all you panelists are answering the questions I asked you, if you want to weave in that question into your answers. If not, Gareth, I promise that I'll bring it back at the Q&A portion of our time together. So I'm going to read it so that it's in the back of all your minds and hearts, the dear panelists. Gareth says to everyone, my training in sustainability discussed the need for a new paradigm. What are some of the ways we as coaches can lead the creation of a new paradigm? I think that's the discussion. That's the question. I'm actually going to ask Marilyn to weave that into her thoughts as I ask a very similar question. Marilyn, what can I do? What can we do to assist myself and others moving into this new world that Rosa was alluding to? Marilyn, make sure you're off mute.
Am I off mute? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, it's a really big question, and it's such a huge opportunity right now. I see this as an opportunity, coaches. We've been given an opportunity by COVID to genuinely focus the world on wholeness. We are not only a whole species, we are exploring, and we're exploring on 4 levels. The personal level, how to be whole in our own life. We get to live at home for a while, and that means the senses open up, and our relationships with our partners and our children open up. And we get to be in a whole relationship with our bodies, with ourselves, our families. That's very interesting, isn't it? What do we need to adjust and maneuver around? Wholeness allows a new paradigm, absolutely, because then we step into the hard part, which is how can we make a difference to our communities and others? What area of creativity have we got to offer as coaches? What area of listening would open that for them? Because mirror neurons work. And I see that COVID coaching is a huge opportunity for the world. For we as coaches, if we're willing to offer our coaching to the front lines, to people working with heavy-duty emotions, to people struggling with their own fears of being truthful in the situation, to the communities they're part of, we are making a huge contribution, and we're shifting that paradigm, truly shifting it. So there's personal coaching to ourselves about our basic ecology. There's coaching in our families and our relationships. There's creativity coaching, assisting people to find those source points in themselves. And we offer stability and resilience. We show, and mirror neurons pick it up, what a coaching attitude to the world is, what that can truly provide. And we're also showing generosity and inviting others to be generous. And this shifts everything so that people, instead of going down into their own fears and their own internal dialogue, go out to work with others, assist others, to contribute in some way. And this changes life's paradigm for human beings.
Oh, thank you, Marilyn. So I was hearing you talk, you used the word paradigm a number of times, shift, all these changes that we're going through, and reframing it as an opportunity rather than as a reason to go into deeper triggers and fears and problems focused, and what an opportunity for us to be truly solution focused. Peter, you'd like to talk about paradigms. I think I don't want to assume anything because I'm trying to be a coach here.
Yeah, it's a very good assumption.
Oh, good. Oh, good. So I have a good question for you. Well, that's what I think. So what are the embedded assumptions, that people have that of our current paradigm, which need to be reframed or need the process of reframing, perhaps through coaching?
Yes, thank you for the question. It's a very good question, because if we are going to do eco-coaching, in my view, the role of an eco-coach is to question the embedded assumptions of the current paradigm, to be able to assist the clients to move into the opportunity, as Marilyn mentioned, of the new paradigm. And there is tons of assumptions, and the bigger assumptions we question as coaches, the more we can assist. The more we can assist movement, because we broaden the context for the client. So, some of the big paradigm assumptions are that we, as humanity, kind of must grow. The growth paradigm and the growth assumption is just behind almost everything. That's a really big one. So especially that one would be a real good one. Or another one is that new technologies just solve old problems. That's an assumption. But as we see, they keep bringing new problems. So maybe we need to find new solutions and go into the new paradigm. And here I would make one note that I don't think that the solutions are just lying here for individuals to pick up. I believe we need to start working together to question the assumptions and to start finding the solutions, because no individual at this situation, I believe, can come up with miraculous solutions. But we as human species, as collectives, we can, because if we collectively change our mind, the realities will start changing and the new paradigm will start coming. So it's about the scale as well. Yeah, so that's another assumption which needs to be questioned, that there is a leader who has all the solutions and the rest of the people follow. In a way, what other ways can we do that? That sort of stuff. So,
thank you, Peter. Thank you. Christopher, piggybacking on what Marilyn and Peter have been addressing here in terms of paradigm shifts, many of the people on that are participating in this this not panel discussion, but this meeting together, this gathering, many of them are familiar with spiral dynamics, and I know that you're very much a deep dive into the various levels and value systems and means. So I'm just going to ask you, what insights do you bring to this particular discussion on paradigm shifts and assumptions?
That's a great question, Richard. I'll keep it brief. But basically, what we're witnessing is multiple simultaneous paradigm shifts across the full spectrum of the human species. This is the first time ever that our whole team humanity has been focused on the issues of how to relate to nature and how to develop and sustain relationships, and also big questions about now our role in society. So we know that the shift is occurring. Where the eco-coaching concept and program fits into this is that it's designed to support the utilization of new thinking, a new mindset, a new worldview. So in spiral dynamics, any of you know it, it's really encouraging us to nurture and utilize this green, yellow, this humanistic towards a more integral awareness. And the question by Mark Garrett, I think it was, about the new paradigm, the question I think we need to hold is what we will see when this new paradigm emerges, what we will see is the more integral awareness, more holistically informed awareness takes hold. And I think we'll see new ways of seeking the truth. And I certainly see that that's an integral part of the eco-coaching program. What we'll also start to see that builds upon Peter's comment is that we'll need to see new forms of scientific inquiry. I totally agree with Peter that most of the decisions we've taken in the past have been absolutely wrong. As my colleague Alan Saber would say, perhaps it's about time we learn to be approximately right. So we're going to seek a new form of truth-making that starts internally with the unconscious, becoming a new consciousness as we discover how to handle this very chaotic life, where I believe, Richard, the simplest way to answer your question is this eco-coaching program really leads us to the capacity to choose to do things that are aligned with and are stimulating to how all life works.
Beautiful. It's almost like poetry what you said. I'm glad we're recording this, Paul. Thank you, Christopher. You know, as you were talking, I was thinking about all of you, about paradigm shifts, and personally, I felt like the paradigm shift was already happening long before COVID came along. And I remember speaking to a colleague of mine about how it's been feeling like things are accelerating and speeding up. And I don't know if that's true for everybody, but and then COVID did happen, and it's having an impact on how I perceive time and these multiple projects and multiple attentions in my life. So this brings me to you, Paul, because this is about speed and agility. So some people can go into apathy when these kind of events happen, and some people can pick up the speed. And I'm going to let you just take my comment, and I'm going to turn it into a question like, how does speed defeat apathy in an eco way?
Thank you, Richard. So there's a lot to this question, and you know, we're talking about new paradigms, but before we deal with the new paradigm, we have to deal with the old paradigm. And you know, so there's a lot of people have mentioned, you know, you could say at fundamental level, people assume that money equals happiness. And if you look at most of the humans on Earth, they're operating inside of this money equals happiness frame. Maybe there's been a slight shift in the last 2 weeks, perhaps not. But just going out about 200 years from now, you know, the great die-off is coming. And this is a crazy idea, it may not be true, but it's a good thought exercise. So, you know, you've probably all heard the experiment where you get some bacteria or some mice, you put them in an environment with an unlimited food source, their population doubles exponentially, and then boom, they all die because they exhaust the capacity of their limited environment to sustain them. So the humans are perfectly on track to achieve a really efficient great die-off. We don't know when it's coming, perhaps in the next 2 years, and we don't know if it's 70% or 90% or 99% of the humans that die off. And so if you were an alien floating outside of Earth, or perhaps a wise being floating outside of Earth, and you're looking down on Earth and you're saying, hey, you know, I wonder, are those humans going to pull it together to sort this all out? And, you know, at a certain level, we could say this whole COVID-19 thing is a tiny expression of the great die-off, kind of coming as an early ball to give us a little early warning that this is coming. And so the question we have to ask is, do we care? Individually, collectively, as a species, are we willing to do what is needed to shift our mindset out of the current paradigm into the new paradigm? And if you were an external being looking down on the Earth based on the current conditions, you'd probably say, you know, based on the action that we see, don't listen to the words, watch what they're doing. The answer is no. So we need a breakthrough, a transformational shift that, you know, attacks this old paradigm and shifts consciousness to a new level. And at a certain level, you know, the church of eco-guilt, where we feel guilty because we're not doing enough to save the environment, is fundamentally broken. And so that's insufficient. Adding a few LED light bulbs to your house is not the scale of change that's going to be required. So, there's another way to look at this is ecological debt. We all understand financial debt. If every month you max out your credit card and you don't earn enough money and your credit just keeps building and building, at some point that has consequences. So right now we have a bank account and we're pushing ecological debt to our children. So are we as humans willing to do what's required to actually balance our income with our spending? Because right now we're spending 3 to 5 times more money than we're making in terms of ecological debt. So this is my skeptic hat. Of course, what we need is speed and agility that demonstrates a quality of being. It kind of takes this new paradigm we're talking about and puts it into the real world with solutions and actions that people can see with their own eyes as self-evident that, yes, we can solve this. And yes, we can collectively work together as a species to make the difficult decisions that we're avoiding right now. So I'll pass the ball.
Thank you, Paul. There was a comment from Brian, I hope you're okay, it was sent just to the panelists, but I'm going to read it because it's so significant. COVID-19 offers the opportunity of a shift of awareness through examining our values, what we define as leadership, strength, weaknesses, success, purpose, and meaning. It simply forces us to see that we cannot escape the results of our actions because we are not separate. As a result, we need to explore all the conditioning that we have been exposed to in order for us to slow down and actually live our lives consciously, gratefully, purposefully, and compassionately in the present. And Rosa said that was a great insight. So Rosa, when Paul was talking, he was talking about care. I heard the word care and caring, and I know that's a topic that's important to you as well. So let me formulate a question around that. How do you seek and hear and feel care and caring for others important to this conversation about ecology? Rosa.
Well, ecology, thank you for the question. It's a great question. And reflecting on Peter's words that ecology, the ecology means interrelationship, interconnectedness. It as if had caring and care embedded in its own. Ecology and caring are interlinked by definition. And I'll reflect on something what Paul just has mentioned, which is yes, we care. I came across two conversations during the last couple of days, and 2 people independently expressed the following: yes, it will be new world. And the other person, we don't know what the new norm will be. And to me, our role is with agility and through agility to really empower people to take ownership of what we do create, that it is within our reach to create the new world the way that it is sustainable and the earth regenerates and we live much longer than it is being predicted as a species. So that brings me to caring. It's caring through time. It's caring now, caring for myself, my body, people around me, for my own awareness, for my own well-being, which is shifted for a challenge for all of us who are in a lockdown. However, it goes much, much further through time and much deeper. It is, as Brian said, discovering what are the deep values and how do we sustain these values? How do we become these values through time in our lives? How do we pass them on to further generations? And in a more pragmatic or practical realms, it is about caring about food security long term, in the long run. And that links to all the agricultural science and practice, the holistic practice as we hope to create. It's about caring, again, at a lower logic, but it is just so acute here about caring about frontline workers, which we Erickson coaches try and attempt to address in our projects that we are just creating. So this is a big question. I just outlined a few answers, and I hope that others will join me to expand on that.
Thank you, Rosa. Thank you. So I'm framing this discussion as best I can, going down the logical levels. So we started with how this experience that we're all experiencing in the world right now can move from a dissatisfaction to a vision, and Rosa and the others have been speaking about the values that are important today, and that's come up in some of the chat. So I'm going to chunk us down a little bit more, and I'm going to turn the speaking over to you, Christopher, because you were saying that you could provide a tool for people today. And I think it'd be nice for everyone to have a takeaway from this call, something that they can actually do. I don't know what your answer is because I haven't discussed it with you, but I'm going to ask you, what is an example of a tool that is available for people?
It won't be a takeaway from this call specifically, Richard, but it'll be a takeaway from the session that I run. I think it's on the 13th of April.
Okay.
When I'm talking about tools here, I want to bring in this theme of caring, which I think is a really important theme in this conversation. Because when I'm talking about tools, I'm talking about these are tools that I have great caring in terms of the selection, because I think all tools in eco-coaching should do three things. One, should stimulate the emergence of a more holistic awareness within the coach. The utilization of the tool is beneficial by the coach. Second, linking to Marilyn's point about leadership, the use of the tool, I believe, should create the upstretch of the leader to stimulate their holistic awareness to lead the creation of this new paradigm, which we certainly don't know the shape or form of yet, but we've got the insight or the intuition that there's something there waiting for us to grow into. And last but not least, for me, I care around the selection of these tools because as I said earlier, I'm only interested in solutions that work. And I'm going to caveat that by saying that the care I bring to that is that we test that the application of these tools is beneficial to all life. So one example is on the session I do, we'll focus on the reading of some of the processes of nature. Now, a lot of my time is working, a lot of my 30 years career in this has been focused on reading the processes of the psyche, but in this session I'm going to do on the 13th of April, we're going to focus on reading the ecosystem processes of Earth's ecosystem, and each of these processes are windows into the holistic nature of any piece of land, your garden, a farm, a field, you name it. And so one of the tools that you'll leave with on that session is how healthy is your land discovery, and that will equip you to go out there into the world to start to practice. And my hope is that that type of tool then becomes part of your repertoire, part of your skill set, and you can then work out to best utilize that in the grander scheme of things. But what I know is that when you use that, you can only leave behind a beneficial abundance. So I'm complete, Richard.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. You're complete for now is what I think. We're always going, we're always evolving, we're always having this discussion. All right, so I would like to ask Marilyn a question now. Again, you know, I'm bringing us down the logical levels, and chunking us down to something more specific. And my question for you, Marilyn, is about, you know, what is an eco-coach in your view, and what are some areas that we as coaches can enter into in terms of being eco-coach or leaders? Yeah, you know, what is an eco-coach? What do they do, and what are some great areas of leadership that, as eco-coaches, we can take, Marilyn? You're on mute. You need to be off mute.
Hi there.
There we go. Okay.
Okay. So I am currently working to define this niche called eco-coaching. I think it's a niche that we can present to the world and be proud of. I think that therefore we need to understand the niche itself. The niche is a little bit like parent coaching in that it's 20% mentoring. People need to understand what ecology means, and they need to understand it in their life and in themselves and notice it. Now that means that there's a lot of tools that we can provide. We want to actually show the tools we have. The tools include mindfulness, various ways to study your own internal dialogue and move past your own particular way of going into dissociation. Because there's 9 key ways that people dissociate, just like there is with the Enneagram, 9 key ways in which people call it fight, flight, or freeze. So we're going to look at the fight, flight, or freeze response that everybody has. And this particularly affects leaders and their blind spots and the areas where they suddenly find themselves off track. How do we use this crisis right now to assist people to notice truly their leadership potential and how to move back on track in every key area of their leadership? So echo coaching for me is about diving in and really listening to people with ecology ears, with the ears of mindfulness. So we're opening up our spiritual series coming up in May. So there's the ears of mindfulness. We're tracking with mindfulness. We're tracking with our values, expanding emotional intelligence. And we're tracking with understanding the key ways in which people dissociate, which we're going into in the course on the Enneagram. So I'm eager to work with echo coaching all the way. And I invite you into this month, everybody, to explore it and to become an echo coach so that you put it actually on your business card, put it on your website, generate it as a customer-connected framework. So I'll go further into that when I do my talk on VUCA and how we move into explaining echo coaching to our customers. So they get keenly interested.
Thank you, Marilyn. All right, so we're almost to the top of the hour, and we're going to move into the next portion of our time together, and that is there's been a lot of chat activity. I'm going to read it, and then there are some questions in there, and I will have the panelists address them. Okay, how far back do I have to go? Let's see. Okay, I read that one. So then I think I'm saying your name right, I hope. What are the embedded assumptions we need to reframe? I would say awareness of the systemic environment all of us live in could be an assumption to be reframed. Human being has been pushed to a situation where the whole system is under a threat. And to the entire system to get rid of it and get back to the great ingrained machine, the collective force of humans has come together from a deep awareness of it. And Evan wrote, if existing leaders see the current paradigm as benefiting, then as individuals, who should we as coaches be targeting that will focus on ecology and systems change? How do we speed up changes? Okay, so that's a question. I'll read it again, and then I'll let one of the panelists answer that if they want to. Who should we as coaches be targeting, I guess, the leaders, and that will be focused on ecology and systems change? I'm going to go to panel. So who would like to take that one on? Put up your hand if you would like to take on Evan's question.
My opinion.
Yes.
On who should be targeting. I see duality here. I see practicing tough love and challenging the leaders on when they have broad goals, like for a company, to ask a question, and who is it good for? And who else? And, you know, broadening that up, and how about all? Because economic leaders have a tendency to leave out what they call externalities. So we have a system, it's good for the system, and we don't care about what's beyond the system. So broadening that up. So that is one class of potential clients. And then on the other side, we should target as coaches the individuals who don't believe they have influence. They have much more influence than they can imagine. So bringing up their ability to actually express and exercise their influence with a broad scope of bringing good to all. That's my answer. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Peter. Anybody else want to add from the panel, add to Peter's response? Yes, Christopher, I see your hand up.
Yes, I think it, two thoughts. One is perhaps be aware of those who turn up in your field. As you shift in your awareness, it will attract others. But certainly look out for those who know that something needs to change, but they're not sure what. And they also want to get to the root causes of why we're in this situation and how we navigate forward. That's how I would select those with whom to work.
Great, thank you, Christopher. Someone else want to speak? I'm just checking their faces. If your hands are up, no, I don't see anybody. Okay, so let me just, there was another couple of questions there in the chat. There's been a lot of chat about the paradigm and, what's the word, and examining assumptions. And there was one from, forgive me if I pronounced your name incorrectly, I think it was Brownwin. And let me see if I can still find it. I lost it. It was there a minute
Is that
ago.
the one, notice number of my clients saying that since they have more quiet time or present or more conscious, this is if they somehow know someone needs them to call to check in on them, to care sincerely, like we are connecting on a greater spiritual level due to COVID. Is that what you're looking for, Richard?
Well, I think there was an earlier one that was actually a question. And
how do we sustain this new awareness and interconnectedness?
Yeah.
Thanks,
well,
Paul.
since you picked it up, Paul, would you like to take that on, or would you like to give it to another panelist?
Okay. I'll answer that a little bit. You know, at a certain level, we are in the middle of a small shift in individual consciousness and collective humanistic awareness right now with COVID. Unfortunately, you know, the waters part, there's a shift in awareness, but those waters could close very suddenly. A few months from now, everyone goes back to business as usual, and we kind of forget that new learning. And this has happened in the past with other epidemics like Ebola and H1N1, where there's a shift in awareness, and then boom, we go right back to business as usual, and you know, how can we make as much money as possible? So, you know, the first thing is that, you know, money is not bad. Money is, you know, a condensed energy in a certain sense. And so there are solutions. Some of those, you know, can be functional economically. And it's important to paint a picture of what do we want, a new future in which we see solutions, we see them working scientifically and from an engineering point of view, and we also paint a picture of the economy. And a great example is just the movement towards solar energy. Over the last 10 years, the numbers of solar, the numbers on solar and wind work, and so that's naturally creating a shift. So we want, at a certain level, we need to show an example of how to make it work. And, you know, Henry Ford said, you know, if you ask people what do they want, they would say, I want a horse that eats less food and doesn't poo in the road. They wouldn't paint you a picture of a car. So we as thought leaders need to come up with a new paradigm, and it can be a mindset first and foremost, But under the mindset, it has to come down to the world of solutions, and we need to show how those solutions work together to create an economic system, and that economic system is viable and workable, and that we can use that collectively as a species to take care of humans. So I think we've got a lot of work to go from the lofty ideals down to the practicality of how do we actually make this all work.
Thank you, Paul. All right, I have another question in the chat from, well, I think there's 3, so more to look at, or 2 more. And it's from Rishi, and the question is, how can we overcome the leader's resistance, I just lost it, to this new approach, and how do we establish our credibility on this? Who would like to handle that question from the panel? Okay, Christopher again. Thank you.
I'll kick the ball. And basically, avoid those that are really resistant. I would do that, and go with those who are open. And what quickly happens is that the ones who are open come up with solutions that completely outperform the present paradigm, and that can be done very quickly. You'll find that those that are resistant suddenly become curious and want to know, how did they do that?
Thank you. Thank you. I think the next question is good for you, Marilyn, that I'm going to ask, so be ready and as I read it. It had to do with fear. Where did it go? Yes, here we go. Before attempting to influence a shift in the paradigm, how do we help people move through their current fears? I'm going to let you take that, Marilyn, because you spoke about fears in an earlier question, if you don't mind. Marilyn, make sure you're off mute.
Richard, that's exactly what I think we're working with here. We as coaches have such a huge offering here. One is we do know how to assist people to build courage. We know how to assist them with value-based self-image. You don't have to be a thought leader to be a great coach in this time. And as you do this, you begin to build your capacity for thought leadership and influence. And you begin to see yourself as a thought leader, because you can, right from the word go, assist people to build their motivation, to discover their own inner fire, if you like, their passion, their source of motivation. We assist people to build vision. And this allows much to happen as people are beginning to comprehend this world. So we have 2 areas. One is our own influence as thought leaders. What can we point out to people that they haven't been noticing or haven't been specific about? And some of the things Paul is talking about, pull those up. We can give examples. We can give those examples in any conversation. And the second then is coaching conversations where we assist people as they step into, associate with their own inner power, their own real capacity to think through what needs to be done from their corner of the world, from their perspective, from their community, from their leadership, and then do it.
Thank you, Marilyn. Rosa, I know you've been thinking a lot about the future in discussions that I've heard in meetings previous, and thinking about solutions, thinking about skills. What do you imagine these new skills and solutions are going to be, or coming into our consciousness now during this time?
Great question. So just, if we could envision a world in which most of human beings would be capable of self-coaching themselves, of taking a coach position on their being capable of holistic, informed awareness and practice, as we can put it. And it's a skill to which we as coaches can contribute to big time. So yeah, it is the skill, which is the willingness and the ability to move beyond one's own perspective towards a broad perspective and through time. And as we build this awareness in hierarchical levels, if you wish, then what follows will be really holistically informed practice. And I believe we may postpone discussion what the holistically informed practice is in very many details. There is one question there about source. That would bring us to a different direction. What really is sustainable? Chunking really down what is good for the environment. Those are very good and very important questions to ask. What we coaches contribute to the humankind, in my view, is really building the awareness and the capability, and that's a skill, to take on the we perspective, the I, we, the earth perspective through time, and then bring it down to decision making.
Thank you, Rosa. Similar question then for you, Peter. How would you approach the topic of finding solutions relevant during this seemingly transitionary time that we're going through? That's for you, Peter. You might have to put yourself off mute. Yeah, you're still on mute, Peter.
Okay, thank you. I could discuss that for quite a while. But in short, answering that question, I would say that we need structured problem solving. That's one major area. And the second major area is we need to learn to make agreements on larger scale, larger and larger scale, and iterate those two approaches to agree on what the problem is, what might be the best solutions, which solution is actually we choose, and how do we implement that. We need to do good problem solving and then making agreements. But I want to bring one more point from physics here, and that is for coaches that in quantum physics, the observer creates the reality by the questions, the experiment he does. So the coach, by asking the question, actually creates the framework, creates the container, and the reality fills it up. So by learning to enlarge our questions into the true ecological framework, we actually would let the reality grow into it. That's the metaphor from quantum physics. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. So I think we've been talking about solutions, and that makes sense, being solution-focused coaches in a solution-focused community. And I'm going to ask you, Paul, a question that regards solutions. And since we're also coming to a quarter after, which is when you would be giving an outline of the larger eco-coaching project, the 6-month project that follow these webinars, if you could speak to that as well, I think you can find a way to put those two topics together. So here's your question. How do we turn our commitment to eco-solutions into the external projects that will achieve the traction that's needed? And
fabulous question, Richard. Thank you so much. So, you know, there's many ways we can do this. Of course, you could do this at the individual level for yourself, just in your life, or the people directly around you by having conversations on a one-on-one level. You can scale it up to a global level, because, you know, although we can say that the only solution to, an ecological transformation is based on my personal lifestyle changes, there is some truth in that, but we're also working in a global system, and there's many influencers and many thoughts out there, and our capacity to influence needs to expand. But I'd like to bring it kind of down to kind of a key area, which is the essence of team coaching. You know, for me personally, I've had the honor of working with so many teams around the world, lots of technology companies or engineering companies, and we're in a business and we have a problem or a challenge. And, you know, I just facilitate a team to whiteboard out some solutions and ask some crazy questions to get some new ideas flowing. They go way up into a big exploration and then come down into a system or a plan that gets turned into a project that gets implemented. So there's one set of skills there that really works around team coaching. And, you know, I encourage everyone to take on mastery of those skills. And so that's kind of part of our next series, is building a bunch of skills around that team coaching capability and how you do that effectively in specific projects. The other thing I want to say, and I wish we had more time to get into Christopher Cooke's work around deep holistic thinking, because, you know, it's very, very simple to say we have a problem, here's a solution, and then we just go. But you, as a scientist or a creative thinker, you really have to dig a little bit on the unintended consequences, because so many of the problems that we're facing today are based on solving a problem in a very blunt way. You know, we're trying to generate income or wealth or money or keep a company going or whatever, and so we solve a problem at the most linear, direct first layer, and we don't put deeper thinking into the systemic system underneath that and how one thing affects everything else. So there's a whole bunch of skills that need to be developed for holistic thinking. Or as Christopher puts it even better is, you know, how do we really have integrity as we move forward? So as coaches, if we're influencing leaders, we're not creating more problems than we're solving. So there's another set of skills around deep holistic thinking that I think are really critical to all of this. So I'm going to segue a little bit into our 6-month program. So we have another 5 weeks or so, and so right around the middle of May, we are setting out a call to have 500 people commit to playing a big game. And the big game, you know, there's many ways we can express that big game, but more than anything, it's not about a bunch of coaches talking to each other. It's about a bunch of coaches going out into the world, finding projects, and seeing where they can have the most influence to support other people. There's so many people in the world who are already working on solutions. And so our kind of magic skill as coaches is to support them to get even more results faster. And so I really want to call on the coaches to start to think through, if you really were going to do this, you were going to develop the skills to be very, very effective as an eco-coach, and then work with a team to actively find a project and take that project across whatever barriers are stopping the development of that project to the point that they can achieve traction and get some results out in the world. That's kind of the big project game that we're creating. And that project would start around May 15th and run for 6 months. We're asking anyone who wants to be part of that to commit fully, to commit to put in a minimum of 40 hours of your life into making that project happen. Of course, you would be working with as part of a team. We're always working as part of a team, so we would be supporting each other in the face of that. And our goal would be to find some very real projects out in the world. You know, we've got some example projects that we've been talking about. We were working with a spirulina project where we would be setting up spirulina growing farms very cheaply in developing worlds. Christopher Cooke was working with an eco-wool certification project where how do you know that the wool that you're buying was grown sustainably, and having a real strong certification process in place. So it's kind of like buying organic food. You're thinking carefully about buying ecological materials that go into the clothing that you put on your body. So there's many, many layers to this. You know, it can go down to very simple things like family planning in the developing world or up to macroeconomic functions. But the most important thing is to step into your power as a coach and really own your capability for influencing others and making a difference in the world, to work with a team, to develop the skills. So there's some training that we'll be providing as part of this. and to scale it up. So we are setting a mark of 500 people, and right now there's 124 participants and another 7 of us in the panel. So our community right now sits at around 130 people. And so we would ask you to commit strongly and then find other people. Who are the people who should be involved in this game? And look, you can go off and create your own game on your own. There's no problem in that. But what's the advantage of working with a big community where we're working together to support projects and even potentially assist them to raise capital or whatever is standing in the way of those projects being successful, doing what it takes to get them off the ground. So we're putting out a general call to build a community of 500 people who are willing to strongly commit. And I invite you to be one of those people and to get 3 more people from your personal network and invite them into our community and ask them to strongly commit. So we'll open that up, Richard.
Thank you, Paul. Really passionate call to the community there in your words. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to invite each of the panelists to speak briefly about these upcoming webinars. I guess I can call them that, these upcoming webinars. Each of them will have a series of webinars, which I believe are coming up very soon. I'll let them explain that. And then I believe that, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong here, believe that after the webinars are all complete, then the launch of the 6-month program happens. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah. And the date we're throwing out is around May 5th, May 15th. So in the next 5 weeks or so, we want to pull it all together to build our community and outline the terms and conditions of the game. And, when I say game, I'm saying, we want to bring that playful, exploratory flavor to it, but also we want to strongly commit to the game. We want to show traction out in the world. Some of these projects may be directly related to COVID-19, but we are expanding the field to really to look in the long term. How do we increase the impact way out in the long term? So,
okay,
wonderful. All step into the game and play as a community.
Thank you, Paul. All right, let's start with Marilyn. And Marilyn, you did say a few words already about what your series of webinars are about. Why don't you summarize that for everybody? And you need to go off mute, Marilyn.
Okay.
There we go.
Everybody. Well, I'm very excited about my part here. I'm starting next week looking with you all about how to begin to develop this niche called eco-coaching and take it on as a description of some specific eco-coaching tools that you will offer, but also as a way that you assist people to develop values around courage, leadership, and deep participation in project awareness that they're working with. So in my portion of the course, I'm going to work with about 5 critical tools. I'll bring one in next week. And these tools are focused on how people move out of what Paul has been calling passivity, how people move out of what I call the 4 gremlins, especially the fear of upsetting people. And these are deep, deep habits that we develop. We don't even notice, and we don't even notice that we notice. We don't notice that we don't notice. So that the habit of pausing rather than taking action has become part of a person's lifestyle. And here we're assisting people to actually notice how they can, first of all, formulate a vision where they see themselves with those leadership capacities, take action, and do something I call moving out of the corner. And the corner is the corner of our own mind where we have managed to sit down and say, well, this is how it looks from here, but we don't step out and see how it looks as we take action, as we become a leader. There's a much bigger vision, including a huge future focus that we can own. So I'm going to be assisting people to take different perceptual positions, focus on the future, and make eco-coaching real. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have only 5 minutes left. There's been a lot of questions in the chat about the details of the program. An email will be going out to everybody who signed up for this panel discussion, and I believe it will have links to each of the 5 different series and more information about the series. Is it correct, Paul, that these are all we're offering them complimentary?
Yes. So the first 5 panels, the first 5 sessions are all complimentary. So there's no commitment other than your time. We will post an event starting in around May 15th. We'll post that in Facebook, which is the big program. And so if you're right now you're saying, yes, I want to commit to the big program, then what you would do is you would say going to that first event, and that's your way of saying I'm committed to the first event. There'll be we'll have an administrator, we'll have people who are managing the whole process, and you can be in email correspondence with them and say yes, I'm in. But for now, we'll post the event for May 15th, and you say yes, I'm going, and that is your quickest way to say that I am in.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. Okay, so we only have 3 minutes left, and I'm going to invite everybody who's close to their chat. Do we have? Yeah, Tanya's asking, do we have that Facebook link to post in the chat now? Do you have it available, Paul?
I'm asking Tanya to build it.
What does that mean?
Just like post an event for May 15th in our group, and then people can say going.
I see. Okay, I got it. Yeah. Well, I believe that I have a link for the sign-up sheets. Yeah, I do. Copy the link. Tanya, you can test this for me. The link that I just put in the chat. It is a link to the landing page. So it's supposed to be. It's a link to the landing page for all 5 series, and I think it has a bit of information. Is that right? Did it take people there?
I'm not seeing the links that you posted. Did you post it privately to somebody?
No, I did. I have all attendees up. Let me do it again.
Oh, because you did all attendees. It's got to go to all participants. So,
all participants.
So that I can see it as well. Yeah.
Okay. I'll do it again. There we go. So as we sign off, I wish we had more time for everybody to discuss a particular series of webinars because they range from topics of health all the way to ecology, all the way to sustainability, and all these paradigm shifts that we've been talking about. One last request is just write a sentence or a value word of what you've gained from our discussion today, and so that we can sign off and send our love and say be well, be safe, and be solution focused, and continue to discuss how this current situation can be an opportunity. Were you able to test that link this time, Tanya?
Yes, I was, and it brings to the Eco Coaching series and the interest.
Yeah, so
if everybody could register there.
Yeah, I'll keep posting it because the chats are really, there's a lot of words: creation, hope, creativity, engagement, connection, integrity, future. Oh my goodness, it's so great. Empathy. We have over 120 people on this call. Insight in big letters. I can't keep up. Okay, I'm going to keep posting my link so that it doesn't get lost in this chat. All right, so I'd like to thank our 5 panelists, Marilyn Atkinson, Paul Gossen, Christopher Cooke, and Rosa, Tkacova, I hope I say it right, and Peter Stefanyi. Really great to get an opportunity to hear each of your insights and go down the logical levels with me. and with everybody on the call. I'd also like to thank you, Tanya, so much, because you came on board last minute. We realized we needed someone to be a TA, and it was wonderful the way you greeted everybody. So thank you for your help. And it is now 11:30 PST on the hour, and yes. Oh, thank you. It was fun. It was fun. We decided that we were going to do a great panel experience, and we decided that one of our values is fun. All right, so we hope to see you in our upcoming webinar series. Hope to see you in all 5 of them, and then as Paul was talking, May 15th or so, join that big project.
Terrific. And Tanya, thank you so much.
Thank you. Blessings. All right, so this has been recorded, and I believe it's automatically shared. It takes about 24 hours for the recording to be ready. So feel free to share the recording. All right. Bye-bye.
Blessing.
Everyone.